everyone, welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new. I was recently having a look in my local yarn shop and I found this interesting looking kit. Now it's got a pattern on the back for a granny square blanket, and the idea is that you make 12 squares, so there's 12 balls of yarn, so 1 square per ball, and it's meant to be self-colour changing, self-patterning granny square yarn. So I thought it'd be a fun idea to try it out on camera today. So the pattern on the back, it says to use a 5mm crochet hook, and then it's just got a basic granny square pattern. This one does have colour changes in it, but we're just going to ignore that because the yarn is supposed to change for itself. So for the colours I chose, it's meant to have a yellow centre and go to green, then blue, then white. So yeah, we're going to try this out and see if it actually works. Here's what the yarn looks like up close. It's a really nice soft chenille, and this is by Woolcraft. It's called Minis Chenille Flowers, and I've got the colour number 6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my centre pole first. Oh, the centre actually looks like it might be white. Got some purple actually, so maybe there are more colours than I realised. Yeah, the inside is actually this purpley pink colour, which I didn't realise. But that should be interesting. So it'll actually go from this purple to the white, to the yellow, to the green, to the blue, and then back to the white. Huh, interesting already. So I'm going to be using my 5mm hook. I'm using one of my light up ones today. So you can see just about in the picture, if you can see it on camera, the granny square is made up of 8 little clusters around. So we're starting with chain 2, and then we're doing 1 treble crochet, and that is making up the first cluster. So I've got my center here that I made, chain 2 and a treble crochet, and then to separate each one we're doing a chain 2 and then we're doing 2 treble crochets. So we're doing that 8 times, and then we're going to see how we're doing colour-wise. So now I'm going to chain 2 and connect it back to the start. It's the top of that first chain 2. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here's how it's looking initially. It's difficult to see the shape until we start adding rows. I do have a little bit of pink left until it turns to white, so I'm thinking we might need to start off with a bit of a longer tail. So I'm just going to go and have a play around with that and check back in. Okay, so I've used my white till I got to the yellow, and it actually made a round and a half, but I've realised where I've gone wrong. I was thinking it was in UK terms, so I just rolled with that, but it's actually in US terms. So instead of doing a UK treble crochet, it should have been a UK double treble crochet, which is funny because I actually usually work in US terms, so I don't know why I assumed it was in UK, but we're going to go back to the start, and hopefully 3rd time's the charm and the colours will match it properly. So I went back to the start and I did the double treble crochets, or treble crochets in US terms, and I didn't have to leave a long tail or anything. I am still having a bit of excess white, so I think I'm either going to have to just accept that they won't be quite perfect rounds, or I'll have to cut them, which I don't really want to do because the concept of the yarn is to change colour. But I did size up my hook to a 5.5, maybe I should have gone to a 6, but the pink shade worked. We'll carry on going and we'll see if it works out. I might even try another skein, see if that's any different. Could just be me, but yeah, I feel a bit silly that I made the mistake with the stitch, but if anyone else makes the same mistake using this yarn and they're a bit confused, maybe this video might be a bit helpful to them. But yeah, we'll carry on and I'll check in after this round. So we were only one granny cluster off, which I don't think is going to be too noticeable, and really I guess you can't expect it to be exact for every single person with different tension. This is just my experience as we go along, but it has worked out for the yellow. We have finished exactly on the colour change. So this previous round that we just did in the yellow, we started forming the corners. So before we had a more circular shape, and now we were alternating between the regular pattern with one granny cluster, 2 chains in between, to 2 granny clusters in one space with a chain 3 gap. So now we're going to move on to the green and form more of our square shape, and we'll check in again after that. Here we are at the end of the green round. It did change to the blue, just one granny cluster and 1 stitch too early, but I think you can still get the idea of the flower that they have going on, and it is pretty close, and I guess it adds a little bit of character. But next up we're on to the blue, so I think we'll go ahead and do the blue, and then after that it's a white one, so let's do both of those and then we'll check in because we've got a round of single crochets to do after that, or UK double crochets. So here's how it's looking. I think it's looking pretty good. Obviously there's a few, it almost looks like it skips a little bit there, but I don't think it's too much of a problem. I think the main thing I had was on the blue round, in my last side, it switched to white a bit too early. I don't think it's too noticeable, but yeah, we're just going to do some single crochets as a border around, so we're going into every stitch. I think it will be worth seeing how the other skeins work up and see if they're all consistent with each other, or if they're all slightly different with the colour changes. One thing I will say is when the colours do change, there's no knot, which can be annoying, especially when you're making a granny square, but it is blended quite nicely. So I'll try and show you that at some point because it's actually very smooth, which is helpful. So I'm just putting a single crochet in the top of every stitch, and when we do the chains, I'm just going 2 single crochets into the chain 2 gap. Okay, we have run into another slight problem. I've done 2 sides of the single crochet border. I think it's looking nice, and I think it will be helpful when we join it together. But I have run out of yarn. We have 2 sides to go. So my thoughts at this point are put this one to one side. I'm going to try another one with one of the other skeins and maybe go back to the 5mm hook, see if that does any better with saving some yarn. And I'll check in once I've done that. So I've made another with the 5mm, and again I ran out of yarn during the border, so I don't think the hook size has really made a difference. If anything, I actually ran out a bit sooner than the last time. So I know it was only 0.5, but sometimes small things can make a difference with crochet. I think out of the 2, I'm gonna go with the 5.5, just because I think the stitches are laying a bit better, whereas the 5mm is a bit puckered in the middle. Yeah, so I will stick with the 5.5, and what I will do, I'll take the first part of the border off and I'll just go in with a different chenille. I might even use a contrast colour, or just white. So yeah, I'll check in when I've done a few more squares. I'll show you the process up close of me making the squares, and then we'll have a look, see how it's going. So here I have pretty much all my granny squares ready to join together and make my blanket. For a quick review on the yarn, in my experience, it was nice to work with. The texture is quite soft. I did like the colours that I got, and I thought it was nice that the colour changes were not factory knots, they were more blended, which was helpful because I didn't really have to weave in any ends. Which is good, because if you did have ends to weave in, you might as well just change the colours yourself. For me, the colour changes were not perfect, so if you are a perfectionist, maybe I would just pick out your own colours and you get to choose which ones you would like. It was a fun novelty, I will say. It was a nice experiment to try out, but for me, my colour changes, as we've showed before, were not at the corners, but I have seen some people online who did get their perfect colour changes where they were supposed to be. So I guess it would just depend on what type of crochet you are, your tension. Maybe if I'd spent a bit longer playing around with hooks and tension and stuff, maybe I could have got it perfect. But another problem I had was I didn't have enough white to go around the single crochet border, so I did have to use a different chenille yarn. I found that all of the yarn cakes were consistent with the colour changes. Like, all my granny squares look reasonably similar. That includes them not quite changing colours where you would expect, but they are all very consistent, pretty much change on the same cluster each time. So that is good, at least, like that they're all consistent. The yarn does feel very nice. As for price, the kit itself was $29.99, which seems consistent across all the stockists I've seen, I believe. And for that you get 12 cakes of yarn, which works out to be about £2.50 per cake, but they are only 50 grams, so I can't tell if it's worth it or not, because you are getting the colour changes, but I have also seen some 100 gram skeins of chenille yarn that are similar price, maybe a little bit more, and you would also get to pick out the colours you want. So yeah, I'm not sure if it's worth it. It was a fun experiment. I'm glad I tried it. I do like the results. I quite like that it's not quite perfect. Kind of adds a little bit of character, but if you are a perfectionist, it might drive you a little bit nuts. So yeah, I guess I'm leaving it up to you if you think it was worth it for the kit. Let me know in the comments, would you try this? Do you think it's worth the price? Yeah, I had fun. I enjoyed working on it. But yeah, maybe it would be better to pick your own colours and do the colour changes yourself. What do you think? I did try steam blocking one of my squares, and I do actually quite like what it's done. I don't know if you can tell the difference. Here is one that's not blocked. I feel like it's kind of relaxed a bit. It's not curling up and like puckering as much. So I think I'm going to do that to all of my squares. Like I've said, I didn't have enough of the white left to do a full single crochet border, so I did have to pull in another white chenille yarn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to steam block the rest of them, and I might even steam block it again, just a little bit once it's all joined together. But I am going to do some slip stitches. I might try and do like surface slip stitches to seam them all together. Yeah, we'll see if that works or if we need to try something else. So here I've joined two of them together. The pattern says to sew them together, but I decided that I wanted to do kind of like a slip stitch crochet, surface slip stitch crochet, just because I find it easier than sewing, and also I think it'll give it a nice little border between them. So how I did it was I went through the back loops of each stitch through both sides. So the back glue's on both granny squares, and then slip stitch through there, and it creates this nice bridge between the two. I'll show you on this blanket that I just finished yesterday, because you can kind of see it a bit better. There's how it kind of looks if you've got different coloured contrast going through. Let me know in the comments if you want a tutorial on that showing how to actually do it. I'm considering maybe taking this out and doing a contrast colour, because I do have a very similar colour to this, so I thought maybe it would be nice to tie it together. I'm not sure. I'm kind of in two minds about it, or maybe I could even just do a border on the outside in that colour. Yeah, I will have a play around and see what I land on, because now I'm kind of taking a bit of free rein over the project, but I will come back to you when I've got either some more granny squares or my whole blanket joined together. And here we have the finished blanket. It's currently sitting behind me as a throw on my sofa, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out actually. So here's a bit of a closer look at how the squares are. I did decide to go for the white joining together. I tried some purple, but it just didn't really look right, so I think I preferred it just as white. I did end up using over a full ball of the extra white yarn I was using for going around the outside and seaming it all together, so I feel like if you were to buy these colours individually, you probably would need quite a few skeins of yarn, but I'm not sure. I really can't tell if the kit is worth it. I think it's fun, but I guess it's up to you whether you think, like, what your priorities are when you're making a blanket, whether it's the perfect colour changes or if you find the value in not having to weave in your ends. I wouldn't say it's like a full-size, king-size bed blanket or anything like that, but I'm actually really happy with how it turned out. But yeah, let me know if you would try this in the comments, or if there's anything else you want to see. Don't forget to like and subscribe, it really helps me out, and apart from that, I'll see you next time.